Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you all for joining the afternoon session of the Malaysia Digital Economy Summit 2021. As introduced by the host, my name is Shamsul Izhan Abdul Majid, and I'm the Chief Technology and Innovation Officer at the Malaysian Communications and Multimedia Commission, MCMC. Our role as MCMC is to regulate and promote the communications and multimedia industry, covering telecommunication, broadcasting, internet services, postal and courier, as well as digital certification. Before we start, I'm just going to go through some housekeeping to ensure you are active with myself and the panelists. If you wish to ask the panelists any questions, please do so by leaving your questions in the Q&A box, and we'll try to get them answered as we go along. Today's session will be discussing the topic of the path to Industry 4.0, leveraging 5G and smart technologies with our esteemed panelists, Professor Nazri, Dr. Gopinath, Mr. Oliver, and Mr. Girish. We are now in the digital transformation era, also called the fourth industrial revolution, 4IR. The global economy is being fundamentally transformed as we speak, by breakthroughs in technology, cutting across the physical, digital, and biological worlds. The government of Malaysia launched MyDigital, the Malaysia Digital Economy Blueprint, on 19th of February 2021. The blueprint charts the development of the country's digital economy and will consist of action plans which adopts a whole of nation approach to complement the 12th Malaysia Plan and Shared Prosperity Vision 2030. Malaysia and Vision MyDigital will see its citizens enjoy improved digital literacy, higher paying jobs, improved social well-being and environmental sustainability, while for businesses, include the micro, small and medium enterprises, which forms the backbone of Malaysia's economy, will enjoy greater opportunity to build, expand locally, regionally and globally through digital revenue streams, with more opportunities to integrate between economic sectors and be more efficient through shared economy. This will be the pillars of a digitally enabled government, which will provide integrated end-to-end online government services, which will be efficient, effective, and transparent. The focus areas relates to MCMC itself as we roll out more of the digital infrastructure carried out through our Jendela initiative to expedite fiberization, expand 4G coverage, improve quality of fixed and wireless broadband, as well as expedite 5G deployment from 2023 onwards. Malaysia is on a journey towards greater digitalization and sustainability development, and Malaysia is taking steps to embrace 5G to realize the full potential of 4IR. We are aggressively upgrading the network coverage and capacity to upkeep the readiness and quality of communication network, as well as addressing regional disparity in connectivity and affordable access. Therefore, let's start our session today. And I would like to kickstart the discussion with Mr. Girish first. The question I will pose to you, Mr. Girish, is that what on the horizon technologies are on your radar for day-to-day deployment? Mr. Girish, pass to you.
Thank you, Sam. Thank you, KSI, for inviting me to talk on Malaysian Digital Economy Summit. The wide range of technology in 4IR essentially starts from anything related to physical hardware, such as autonomous vehicles, and you've got essentially the merger into the digital framework, which essentially starts with IoTs, sensors. On the biological side, you've got technologies like the biotechnology and other components. But if we sort of drill down a suite of about 50 over technologies into what really works for our country and for our businesses, I think we've probably got a handful that essentially are being used effectively and with a return of investment. I would start with the IoTs. I think the IoTs are the basic things to get everything digitized. Our processes have to be digitized and then digitalized and essentially linked up to the cloud. so we can better access it to have real-time information to make decisions. The other technology that I see, which essentially is, I call it a no-brainer, and every company that has some level of automation or digitization should start looking at it, is AI. And we've done extensive amount of work in researching how AI can improve, people's well-beings. And I think AI is one that I would throw my money into as an investor. The last one, which I think is also quite crucial, is what I would call mechanization. It's a simpler level of mechanization, and I think that is something that Malaysia, being an agricultural land-based majority nation, should really take advantage and move into that. Thank you.
Thank you, Girish, for the elaboration to our first question, and I'll move to our second panelist, Mr. Oliver. The implementation of smart technology is the basis for new industrial developments. There would be no 4IR without IoT. Therefore, Oliver, would you share us your thoughts on how 5G will accelerate a new wave of IoT applications?
Sure. Thanks very much for that introduction. And Girish, I certainly would love to thank Sam and KSI for inviting me to this session. Now, very importantly, clearly Girish have given a very good overview on the different technologies that are coming to play, right? So AI, IoT, cloud computing will definitely play a very big role. IoT has been around for quite a while. In fact, if you look back at history, 1999 was the first time when the concept was first promoted and slowly got adopted. In recent years, IoT has taken a flight in multiple ways. First of all, the integration of AI, artificial intelligence, into edge devices has given IoT an additional strength. And that being the case, creates a very powerful network of processing capability that can accelerate the process in moving forward. Now, what I'd like to add on to the fact on IoT is really the part around computer vision. Now, if devices at the edge do not just simply collect data, but has the capability to do some degree of analytics, particularly with the vision that it collects, whether they're still images or videos, a level of intelligence embedded on those devices, which can provide a substantial amount of analytics, will lend tremendous value to the overall value change of how IoT can support businesses. Now, what is important for us to really understand is AI can be adopted in almost every domain, right? What we need to really understand is that AI should be able to mimic what humans can do, but should not duplicate or replace what human tasks is all about. In fact, it should augment, and it should really play a very important role to support human decision making. So imagine if all these converging technologies come together, we will be able to have a higher quality of living, and more importantly, a higher quality of processing our work. What to keep in mind, maybe I'll leave with this comment, is we should not compete with technology. Humans should never compete with technology in terms of efficiency, in terms of speed, but we should think of how we can leverage technology to augment our capability and potential. Back to you, Sam.
Yeah, thank you, Oliver. I think that's a pretty good insight in terms of humans shouldn't be competing with technology. And perhaps that's a good segue into our next panelist, Professor Nazri Muhammad. Could I get your thoughts on what does it look like from a technological lens as businesses shift from continuing planning to recovery and acceleration?
Thank you, Tuan. From our perspective, if you were to put 5,000 SMEs between annual average revenue of 1 million to 10 million ringgit, yeah, into a room, what you'll see is that pre-crisis, pre-COVID, you will notice that about 77% of the SMEs are experiencing high volatility in terms of its earnings and top line sales growth, yeah, and about 2/3 of their assets are stuck in non-cash items like inventories, receivables, and all that. And then a further, at least half of 50%, half of the population of the 5,000 sample exercise we talked about would have experienced high gearings pre-COVID. Now, COVID came, right? COVID came and struck everybody out of the charts. Okay, then everybody's ratios start going in all different places, mostly on the southward stance, yeah, all going downwards. When you look at the situation, the element of continuity, right, succession planning, and then recovery, then succession planning, right, recovery, and then post-recovery, you notice that the sequence are a bit off. For most of these SMEs, they do not embark on continuity planning in the first place. So recovery or firefighting has always been the name of the game, right? So they've been firefighting with all those set of ratios that exacerbated during the COVID times and post-COVID times. Then when they firefighted the whole COVID effects, they start then doing the planning. Okay, what do I do now? What do I do to survive? What do I do to thrive? So with this in mind, when we discuss with various Malaysian SME agencies or government agencies, they've identified close to 150,000 SMEs that cannot be, that has to be assisted, that cannot be left alone. If they fail, right, these 150,000 SMEs in 5 sectors would result to massive unemployment and massive decline in the overall well-being of workers, businesses, and all that. So in the context of technology, right now you bring technology into the picture, we'll discover that they are too busy figuring out what technology to adopt, whether it's AI, robotics, whatnot, right? But thinking of firefighting, cash flow, sales, and recovery. So after that phase has been accepted or overcome, right? What happens is that they will then be selective on the type of technology that is very KPI or ROI driven. So whether it's a need to have or good to have, it becomes more pronounced. They have become more discerning about what sort of ROI can technology bring to them. So it becomes a very critical point as part of their recovery plan that the ROI of any form of technology adoption becomes key. So the ROI would include the cost benefit analysis, would include the kind of top line and bottom line impact it has for them, the kind of cost cutting measures, the reliance on less of human labor and more on technology adoption. These are the kind of things that many business owners are worried about and many businesses are concerned about. So from a post-COVID point of view, assuming they're firefighted, they are now doing their planning, they're now planning for their continuity, which is the other direction, right? The continuity comes last for them. It becomes clear that the ROI and cost benefit is key for them to consider as part of the technology or digital adoption. Thank you.
Thank you, Prof. I think your points touch upon one matter that the panelists and I discussed previously, which is about SME ranking in how ready are they in this whole journey. But we'll come to that a bit later. I'll move on to Dr. Gopinath. Dr. Gopi, to what extent is sustainability a positive byproduct of digital mastery?
Thank you, Mr. Shem. Actually, if you look at the sustainability, right, a lot of organizations has actually incorporated sustainability. But then how far are we actually looking, are really a positive impact to sustainability? I would see in these 2 parts. Yes, in some cases, digitalization, adopting technology do provide an impact in terms of sustainability. Take, for example, agriculture sector, right? There, of course, studies have shown that using a proper technology, you can reduce the amount of water, and that, of course, impact in terms of the long-term sustainability. And some countries, for example, Uganda, right? There's a system that has been developed using a GIS system and then satellite imagery, machine learning, to see how much consumption, water consumption that is required for the irrigation system that is channeled to the agriculture. And apparently, using the system, they can actually reduce the water by up to 30% of the same amount that you used previously. The same thing, right? If you use machines in guidance in a controlled traffic farming, right? So apparently you can reduce up to 25% of fuel costs. At the same time, in some countries, they have used technology to reduce, the amount of pesticides, and then the airborne multispectral techniques have been used to do inspections and so on. But that is, of course, a good side of it. A lot of people want to achieve that, sustainability, but we need to look at the other aspect of it, right? Does technology really bring up a positive sustainability? I don't think so. No, a simple example is that, I was listening to BFM this morning. Now, Xiaomi said that, they've actually produced 210 million IoT devices for the past, I think, 5-6 years. That is a huge amount. And if you see the growth of adoption of telephones, for example, smartphones, it has been accelerating. And on average, people change handphones every 18 to 24 months. And what that costs with sustainability, we are actually making use of raw materials, right? That is depleting the raw materials and increasing speed because of all this technology. Another example I would see is, for example, we are, connecting the world by, laying undersea cables and so on. Well, it's the study has shown that, the process of creating the cable may not be sustainable because of the harmful gases that is being produced. But if we actually have a cable which is a very long lifetime, yes, the environmental impact could be actually reduced over time. Now, similarly, all the technology that we are creating, we are adopting, has two sides of it. You talk about the hardware part of it, so much of materials that we use, raw materials, right? But if you use the technology properly, it does benefit in some aspect of it, the use of land, the use of water, and so on. Some example could be as simple as, e-book versus to paper book, right? So there, again, there's a study has shown that, in terms of sustainability, you need to read about 60 to 70 e-books just to break even for the paper book. So again, there are various other, adoption in terms of technology. Again, it's a two sides, I would say. It's not perfectly 100%, sustainability of this byproduct of the technology. That's my take.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Gopi. It is always a balancing act that SMEs and even the industry needs to perform at all times, especially if you are profit-oriented. I'll go back to Mr. Girish on a rising topic that covers many that are thinking about IoT, 5G, which is the topic of cyber security. Maybe Girish, would you like to elaborate on what would the industries, SMEs, and others need to consider when it comes to cyber security and in face of implementing AI, cloud, 5G, IoT, and the family of all that? Interested in your thoughts, Mr. Girish.
So the question is, if I'm an SME and let's say, we're doing R1 million and say 50,000 profit, how much would I need to spend on cybersecurity? And should I invest in it or protect myself with it? It comes back to essentially looking at the model of, I use the pizza as an analogy. Yeah. If you don't have the base of the pizza, everything else doesn't work, right? You can have the best chicken, or you can have the best sauces or the vegetables. So I see cybersecurity as the base, and this is crucial because we're talking about digitalization. It's about data. It's about data moving around. It's about using data to improve our lives and improve the future generations' lives. So cybersecurity is crucial, and it is almost, I would talk about it like an insurance, yeah? In a lot of us at the initial times of our lives, we were probably wondering, should I have an insurance, a life insurance or medical insurance? But as we grow through this journey in life, we realize how important it is, right? And this is where I think we need to start educating people. So for SMEs, there are some wonderful products out there. We use one of the systems in our own set of offices. It's not expensive. It's about 1,000 ringgit a month, but it protects everything. And I get daily reports. I see what's coming in. And the beauty about this is you don't see these attacks that are happening. Yeah, what's happening is people are actually mirroring, they're observing, they're collecting the data. And at some point, they can use it terribly to dismantle your systems. And then when that happens, it's too late. So my thinking is, the awareness of cybersecurity must be there. And we got to take it seriously, because if we're really going to go through this digitalization sequence in our transformation of the country with 4IR Negara and My Digital and what DNB is doing with 5G, we got to start with making sure that our data is protected. And that's very, very, very important. The last point I'd like to make is we got to also think of the younger generation, yeah? And cybersecurity to me is also about protecting our data on our mobile phones. You know, we have children, and children use the phones to do all kinds of things, play games. But the danger is the camera on the phones, yeah? And there are applications you can actually buy that actually can restrict certain camera. It detects certain images that are being pushed across to the net, and it blocks it. So these are things that, it's almost going to be a norm, in my view, in 5 years. It's just a question of how do we get ourselves educated, and how do we really democratize the whole financial part to make it affordable.
Thank you, Girish. And yeah, we have to always consider the aspects of cybersecurity, especially data and exposure to those that we love, our kids, family, and often enough, they will look towards people like us for advisory on what is next that needs to be done to protect everybody. I'll move on to Mr. Oliver. The topic of today's session is the path to Industry 4.0, leveraging 5G and smart technologies. What, in your opinion, what's the end goal of digital transformation? Does it ever end? And do you think technical debts and legacy systems are the biggest roadblocks towards implementing digital transformation?
Thank you for the question. This is in fact a very important factor that SMEs as well as even the large organizations need to think about. And to do so, we probably need to go back to the fundamentals. Industry 4.0, what does that really mean? And when we talk about digital transformation, what does that again really mean? I'd like to go back to a bit of basic concepts so that we can put all ourselves on the same page. First of all, we need to differentiate between digitization, digitalization, and digital transformation. So digitization refers to the fact that you want to be able to transform data captured in all forms into a digital form, right? So you digitize your data. Now, this is a very important step because most SME may still have their data on paper, on prints, and all other possible formats, right? So if they do not digitize their information, their data, it is very difficult to talk about Industry Revolution 4.0. So that's the first step, right? Getting your data organized, right? Putting everything into digital format. The second really is the part around digitalization, right? So when we talk about digitalization, we are really talking about how we can automate the processes that are using the data, right? So now you got your data packed properly and organized in the right format with the right structure and data schema. How can then processes be able to tap on all this information to move fast and to execute efficiently? And this is where the whole concept around robot process automation comes into play, right? How do you automate the process with minimum human intervention, because you are able to see things move in the correct order, especially when the data is already encoded in a digital format that can be extracted and used accordingly. So you've got the data organized, digitized, you got your process digitalized. Then the next step, of course, we want to look at digital transformation. Now, digital transformation is slightly different from the first two because it involves the past, the present, and the future, right? So knowing what is the historical collection of data, how things have happened, transforming it into a format that can be used, and understanding the current process of how things are happening, automating it, and more importantly, identifying corners of efficiency and trying to improve on it so that things are working better. Then we need to look at where do you want to go from here, the future that you want to achieve. Now that path, right, is going to be a bit difficult. You know, your second question, as in, does it ever end? Does it ever end? Well, honestly speaking, it will only end if we all retire and don't worry about the business anymore. As long as we are in business, whether you're an SME, whether you're a large enterprise or a government institution, you need to continue to look at how you can improve your processes. You need to continue to look at what is possible, what is coming to you. And I guess in a current pandemic, something that came to us was out of expectation. How do we continue to transform and reinvent ourselves, recalibrate to see how we can move forward? So digital transformation is not an end in a journey. It is not a destination, but really a journey that will continue to look at improvements and how we can get better. The key question will be, where exactly are we now? How do I assess, before we get to Industry Revolution 4.0, are we currently at 1.5? Are we currently at 2.5? Or is it 3.2? Because that would determine how long more is the journey before you reach Industry 4.0. The other point that you want to look at also is, where do you want to go to? Maybe in some industry and domains, perhaps you don't really need to reach 4.0, or for that matter, talk about 5.0 in the future, right? You want to be comfortable where you are and understand your understanding of your customer needs, the customer base that you're serving, and how their needs have evolved over time, and you want to match up with them and continue to support the customer base. That should determine how far do you go. And hence, Sam, to your last question, right? Technical debt and legacy system, well, those are important, and in fact, will be considerations for you to determine how far you go with your digital transformation. But that should not be roadblocks. In fact, those should be consideration to help you think how much you need to pivot, how much you need to transform, and more importantly, how much demand will be needed from you and your resources to move forward. What we probably need to understand is that conventional leadership principles are not currently designed, right? They are currently not designed for the demands of digital transformation. What it really translates into is that digital transformation will require a change in leadership mindset. And this is key because as the new generation of the workforce come into the industry, they are technically a lot more savvy and they know technology a lot better. We cannot continue to manage our process, our resources with the old method of thinking. Hence, right, digital transformation is a continuing process that we need to fully understand. I don't think it will ever end until you shut down your business or your business go bust. As long as you want to continue to serve your customer, The customer will have evolving needs. Your resources, your internal resources will continue to build their own set of capability, and how do you match your capability with customer needs is an important piece. Technical debt and legacy system are just along the way that you need to adapt. You need to decide what you can keep and what you should transform and pivot into the new dimensions. So this is an ongoing discussion. It's not going to be done in 10 minutes, but I think it's important. Two questions. One, are your current data digitized? If you have not even digitized your data, don't talk about digital transformation. You probably won't be ready until some time to go. Secondly is, how far do you want to go? You can decide as a leadership. You don't have to follow everyone, but you probably need to decide how far you want to go. And that is a continuing debate that this panel can have, and perhaps even further discussions in other platforms. Back to you, Sam.
Thank you, Oliver. And you have elaborated a hot topic amongst many professionals out there. Digital transformation is supposed to keep on going so long as you have your business that keeps on satisfying your customers' needs. But you also pointed out two major things that all businesses need to consider. And that would be a good segue for me to ask Professor Nazri. And you highlighted, Professor, that SMEs play a major role. And if I were to come from the SME's perspective, what should SME do differently tomorrow? Should they start to hire top leadership such as chief digital officers? Or perhaps who should be having this vision to help SMEs move forward in this big world of digital transformation?
Yeah, thank you. Taking a leaf from what Oliver has shared, you can sense that there are three growth stages that every SME has to go through, no doubt, right? So in most SMEs by now, they would have digitized their data in the form of HR data, accounting data, operational data, sales data, invoices, and all that. So this would have been digitized somewhere, somehow, in their own cloud system, or in their own little spreadsheets or databases and all that, yeah? So then the question here is, to what extent have they digitalized, automate the use of structured and unstructured data in the first stage? Okay, to what extent have they used, right? So whether it's a chief digital officer or whether it's a robo-advisor driven and powered by AI, you can use either one, right? And then you can measure the cost benefit. If you're to hire a CDO, how much would it cost per month? Or advisor, human advisor, how much would it cost per month to do A, B, C, D, E, F, G, right? But if you have a robo-advisor that's able to digest and ingest structured and unstructured data, HR data, finance data, invoicing data, customer data, all this, and turn into a roadmap, turn into a futuristic plan on what needs to be done, what has been done, why did it need to be done, what needs to be done in the future, what can be monitored and what can be transformed. Imagine a robo-advisor that's able to do that using AI, and then you bring to the next stage, right? So you have the digitized data, you have the digitalization process going on, you automate the process of analyzing the information, then you suddenly eventually bring somebody, the current business owner, without having to use the CDO. They can use the robo-advisor to lead and guide and advise them as one alternative. Okay, so it's about new ways of doing things versus the traditional or old ways of doing things. You have to decide. With the current pandemic going on, right, the old ways of doing business is almost irrelevant. We have to think of new ways, the way we process data, the way we analyze data, the way we adjust and make tweaks to our business model. That has been the new game right now, the new normal. Okay, so when you have a robo-advisor powered by AI, they can analyze, okay, from step A to step Z. Instead of taking weeks and months or days, it can take within an hour or within hours to tell you what happened, why did it happen, what can happen in the future, what needs to be done, and what can be monitored. The business owner then is faced with a very, very important consideration. Hire a human upfront, chalk up 6 months of retainer, or use a cloud-based robo-advisor, advise within a day, and you take the next 5 months to get the right people to channel to the right direction. Instead of waiting for the human to tell you the right direction, the machine tells you where to go, how to go, what needs to be done, how much working capital you need, what is the valuation of your business, how to do your financial and business planning, what are the top 10 risks that you need to monitor, who are your 5 competitors. AI can do all that right now, right? So the question here is, You spend one day to get all the data done, process it, digitalize it, transform it, the data into a meaningful insight. Spend the next 5 months executing, versus getting a human consultant for 6 months that starts to get you organized from 1 to the 1st to the 6th month. So the ROI and the cost benefit analysis will start to become more prominent. If more SMEs know of the situation, does that really mean the CDOs are not needed anymore? Does that mean that humans are not needed anymore? So I have to think again, right? Of course we need the humans, right? To humanize, to guide, to mentor, to coach. Machines can't do that. Machines can objectively and accurately tell you the 5 levels of analysis, right? Telling what happened, why did it happen, what can happen in the future, what needs to be done, or what needs to be monitored. But humans are needed to facilitate that process, to do the intervention, and to do the coaching, the motivating, the encouragement and the empowerment, the digital transformation we talked about just now. You need the human element. No robots in the world can digitally transform a human mindset just like that. It has to have the human element inside and the machine element inside. Hence, we call it augmentation or augmented intelligence rather than artificial intelligence per se. This is my 2 cents worth based on our dealings with micro, small, medium enterprises as well as agencies that deal with them, including social enterprises and cooperatives. So it goes beyond the knowledge of digitalization, transformation, but it involves the humanization. Where does the human fit across all the 3 stages, and how do you change the mindset to adopt it and to be clear about the ROI and to be clear about replacement versus displacement of jobs because of such technology, and put it on top the ROI and the cost benefit analysis. Put these 3 elements together and put it across the business owner and the human element, not the robot, right? The human element to explain, to guide, to coach. Slowly and surely their mindset will change, as long as they see the benefits at the end of the tunnel, right? Thank you, Mr. Shamsul.
Thank you, Prof. And you highlighted a particularly close topic to me, which is mindset. People's mindset when it comes to moving their organization or people or teams forward. And this is where we would need to understand more, maybe from our next panelist, Dr. Gopi. In particular, the question is around how do we provide assurance to organizations who wish to start on IR 4.0, smart technology, 5G, etc. Where do we start actually? Do we start on the mindset first, or the process, or do we start at the technology space?
Yeah, thank you, Shamsul. I think one of the biggest challenges that we have here is that to convince SMEs to adopt or to embrace technology in the process of digitalizing the processes, digitalizing the way they work and so on. If you ask me which one comes first, I still feel is that the convincing to the higher management is the first step. Without them being convinced to transform the entire process, then it's so difficult. It's very difficult for them, to take up the challenge of transforming. Of course, the next thing is that once we manage to convince them, of course, there's so many facts. I think we don't need to, go individually, which each SME is telling them, hey, this is good for you and so on. The statistics are there. Once they adopt a technology for specific use cases, they can see the benefit of it. Either like what Prof. Nazri mentioned, right? So using autonomous or robots, right? To automate certain things. In fact, what the trend is, if you see the trend is moving forward, the first step is of course cloud migration and all those things. But AI, infusion of AI in terms of the processes is one of the key element that we want to look to. Second, of course, the process. So where they need to start, right? First, identify what is that they want to transform. Sometimes some organizations, they want to transform, but they don't know where to start. Some, they are very willing, but there's nothing to transform. Right? There's no problem for them to change, the problem to attack. So like this, right, there are various stages of the transformation. So in the process, first need to identify what exactly they need to transform. And it can be phases. Not necessarily they need to change everything in one go. They can take split the entire digitalization or transformation into few phases and do it step by step and use the right technology for that purpose. For example, if you say that, you want to make sure that your machineries are automated or machinery can send data, for example, for maintenance purposes and so on and so forth, must make sure that type of the sensors that you use to measure all the parameters within the machineries. If you use the wrong parameters, then the entire thing will fail. So again, if you ask me, the first step is to convince the higher management for them to take up. Second is to identify what exactly they need to transform, what are the processes they need to do. And then, of course, identifying the correct technology to be applied and used in the transformation. That's my take.
Thank you, Dr. Gopi. Now going back to Girish, and I'm very sure you are the best person to give a response to this question. What is the biggest driver of competitive advantage in this world of smart technologies?
Yeah, so this is a difficult question because the biggest driver to, if we're talking about digital transformation in an organization or a public sector organization is the boss or the number one person's vision and sheer brute ambition. I think that's going to be the key driver. If you do not have that want to transform or what I call growth mindset, then whatever we're talking about doesn't work. And in a lot of organizations, we actually see that, the fear of technology, the fear of changing, the fear of losing their jobs because, you've transformed so much that you sell yourself out of a job. But what we fail to realize is the world is changing. And, we've been harping about this 10 years ago. And in the last 2 years when the pandemic came in, it just accelerated whatever we were talking about. And it's so important to have everyone in a growth mindset because we're post-pandemic or we're in the midst of coming out of it. And if we do not have the growth mindset, we're going to be bogged down by a lot of mental stress. We have a lot of things to sort out. We have to get the business back to where it was before we can start looking at that growth. But it's a great time to change. And now is the time to brainstorm, if you have not done that already, and start to get those action plans in place. And find the right people. I think right now it's not about technology. Yeah, I think technology is a lot more advanced than where it was. The problem now is people. And we need to understand that you can't train or reskill people unless they are happy and they want to. Yeah, this is very important because we face it internally as well, where we find difficulty to get someone to be motivated to be in a growth mindset. So you probably have to relook at reward systems. You probably have to democratize the whole employer-employee, create entrepreneurs, make your employees entrepreneurs, give them shares, give them incentives, give them things that can grow them so they become successful, and that links back to your organization. I think it's something around that.
I can't disagree more, Girish. I personally feel that people is the biggest advantage and lack of will be the biggest disadvantage to execute the mindset and the digital transformation needed, especially for Malaysia to move forward. That would bring me segue to Oliver. We discussed briefly, Oliver, in our previous engagement about toolkits. You mentioned about toolkits and where SMEs are able to size themselves up for them to understand how to be on this IR 4.0 journey. Could you elaborate more on how could SMEs or even toolkits out there be available for industries to actually use?
Sure. I wanted to reiterate what Girish shared. I think he hit the nail on the head, right? It is very important to get the management to agree. And the management's decision is largely going to be based around what the customer needs and how the business is going to support the customers or the constituents of the business itself. So that is going to be very critical. And management leadership must have the vision to help to bring the company to the next level. And that is where digital transformation can help, because the captain of the ship must know where they want to go to. But of course, the captain of the ship needs help, right? He needs help from various places, right? One, of course, is the toolkit. And let me talk about that in a while. But before we talk about the toolkit, it is very common that we all look upon three very key pivotal factors that decide how a business should move forward, right? That is the people, the process, and the technology. The question is, which comes first, right? Is it technology first, and then we figure out what skills to hire? Or do we hire the people first and then figure out what technology you want to adopt, and so on and so forth? I personally believe that it is important the leadership vision must come first, because that is going to guide the organization in moving towards where they want to go to. And then the next thing that needs to take place with the vision is the employees' capability and potential to support that vision, right? They must have that skill, the capability to support the vision. If not, where can we source for that skill? And together with people and the vision, the next thing we need to do is to define and build the processes. To define and build the processes that you want to achieve from a business standpoint. Sad to say, I'm a technologist, I love technology, but technology should come in to support the capability. The technology should come in to support the process and eventually the vision, right? Many organizations look at what's out there and what's the trend and say, AI, okay, let's do AI, right? But they don't even understand if their organization is ready for it. So it's very important to do that. 5G is coming up, right? So let's tap on 5G. But do we really need 5G in our business process? So that is key. Vision to capability, to process, and to technology. So what I've just listed out are possibly tools that have to look at those four parameters, right? As we all know, I sit in Singapore, and we have created a industry readiness index, right? And in this industry readiness index, we look at these four components and make an assessment where we are, what sort of skills we have, where are we in the process, and how much more automation do we need to put together. And based on the whole assessment, this readiness index can then give a indicator, right? A awareness of where we are today and how far we can go, right? So based on this readiness index, we can then determine a 16-point index. And this 16-point index will be able to map out how ready are we in terms of capability, how ready are we in terms of process automation, how ready are we in terms of technology that we can adopt, technology in the marketplace that can support, and everything needs to sit together like a jigsaw puzzle, match up to support the business vision, right? So all those must come together, and sometimes it is probably not necessary to just simply look at an external toolkit that can come in and support you. Sometimes internally, right, the CIO can play a pivotal part, right, can play a very crucial role to work with the C-suites to talk about how they can and assess their capability and capacity to support the transformation. So as long as they can look at those three factors, capability, automation of processes, and available technology, and how this three fits together to support the business goal, which then in turn supports the customer needs, then they can come up with a set of index. There can be a number of questions that can be asked, and we can always source these questions and what is necessary to do it. What is important is the business must support the customer. The business must understand the customer journey and go with the customer journey to ensure that the customer is successful. And if the customer is successful, the customer comes back to you. And if the customer comes back to you, you have your business. When you have a business, everything just falls in place within the organization. So that's what I propose we do. While I have mentioned the Singapore Readiness Index, that's probably not the only index that you should look at. In fact, good organizations can sit down and have a workshop to create possibly an index that they can adopt locally to support their own sector and build it up. In fact, associations out there could play a role in pulling together some of these needs and help to create an industry-wide indicator that the members of the industry can adopt and benefit from that exercise. Back to you, Sam.
Yeah, thank you, Oliver. You highlighted the need for leadership, and the leadership is to bring in engagements of readiness. And I would like to pose to Professor Nazri, in terms of readiness of organizations or even countries, Malaysia, Singapore, for example, to discuss ethics of AI or ethics of technology. Interested in your thoughts?
Yeah, we've had a discussion on this with the SIDC folks, in a public event. We're talking about trustworthy AI, right? And trustworthy AI would cover the elements that you mentioned, right? About the ethical part, about whether you're discriminatory, whether you're biased, amongst others. So to me, the starting point for AI to be trustworthy, right, will be that it is explainable. It has to be explainable. When things are very transparent, it's explainable, you know what's the input, process, and output, right? You'll be able to govern, you'll be able to see, discern, and you'll be able to identify which are the areas of potential bias or potential discriminatory practices that are being embedded into that logic. Okay, so it has to be explainable first, right? And transparent. Then secondly is when you talk about code of ethics, there are various levels that need to be in place for AI to be trustworthy. Okay, which means that it has to be ethical. It has to have, number one, there must be the organization-wide code of conduct, code of policy being made. So within the organization, what is your business model and what's your business got to do with data, and how do you use internal and external data to good use, and who is accessing those data. So internally, you have a set of policies and SOP, standard operating procedures, that will govern how your data is going to be managed, notwithstanding the statutory requirement of the PDPAs or all the governance around that from a statutory point of view. So there's a statutory point of view, there's the organization code of conduct that needs to be in place. Then the third would be, the operational part. So at the end of the day, yes, you can have the papers, you can have the policies. At the end of the day, how do you ensure the people actually execute that, right? And within the system that you design, okay, have you configured your system in such a way that it has layers and layers of access rights or authority to access certain data, certain modules, certain windows, certain groups, right? So there has to be another layer, analytically, technologically, and operationally, all embedded into one, to make sure that the system, the database, the infra, and the UI UX do not allow unauthorized people to access the data that you're not supposed to access, right? And then, of course, last but not least, when you deal with certain institutions like financial institutions or the DFIs, right, the IFIs and so on, even though you have all this in place, you have to have the last piece of information or protection, right? That is to have anonymized data being processed in the machines side of things. So you can anonymize the data so that it will prevent people from doing unnecessary things. It could be the business manager, business owner, whatnot, right? So essentially, when you anonymize data, it limits the ability for you to do unethical things to the data. So overall, right? Ethically, yes. Okay. Within the logic itself, we talk about explainable AI. How do you ensure that you don't put rules that limit your financing to certain race, certain religion, certain demographics when it comes to extending financing? How do you not discriminate? So Facebook recently have to apologize because they refer to a certain race as primates, monkeys and apes, because of whatever, right? Whatever the algorithms told them. So there were many other tech giants that made that same mistakes too. Why? How can you not differentiate between humans and apes, for example, right? But the algorithms must have been so smart that they missed out some fundamental things. So who checks those things? So had you made it very explainable, very transparent, and follow the elements or factors that I mentioned, I think there will be check and balance involved when it comes to promulgating technology. Over to you, Mr. Shamsul.
Thank you, Prof. I think you've given pretty good insights on the level of readiness for the community or organization to discuss about ethics. Last but not least is back to Dr. Gopi. And I'm very sure you are keen to answer this one. How is digital success being redefined in organizations?
Yeah, thank you, Sir. I think looking at the pandemic is one of the good examples, I would say. One thing that pandemic teaches us is that how fast can we transform our businesses. For those who have been in a brick and mortar type of sales and services, they need to quickly transform, otherwise they'll be left out, they'll be out of business, and then when business back to normal, it's a bit difficult for them to quickly adopt the changes. Now, important thing is, yes, digital success will be defined. It is important for organizations to adopt as soon as possible. Now, a good example I would say is that, AirAsia. So they are always in the business of airline, right? And do you see how fast they transform themselves? They are a big organization, no doubt. But then you see how fast they have transformed into a super app where they provide all kinds of services. So similarly, organizations, especially SMEs, need to quickly transform themselves to be left out, not to be left out and be out of competitive with the other, similar services to be provided by others. Yeah, I think that's my view on those.
Thank you, Dr. Gopi. We are coming close to the time that we all need to be conscious of, which is another 10 minutes. So I can sum up overall that we have gathered very insightful information and comments, feedback from the panelists, ranging from mechanization, IoT, human versus technology, SMEs with readiness, sustainability, pizza-based, Girish's way of looking at things, robo-advisor, that's pretty good insights to consider, tone from the top, or management to drive the conversations, explainable and ethics, and of course, last but not least, speed of transformation. So I invite each panelist to use this opportunity to put forth your key message or key takeaway for our audiences here. I start with Mr. Girish first for your key message or takeaway that you would like your audience to bring home from this session.
I think the title is Reinventing the Digital Economy. I think in Malaysia, I think we're not reinventing the digital economy. I think we're probably embarking on the digital economy, and it starts with the 5G. Unfortunately, the 5G will not be in 80% of locations around Malaysia, especially farms which don't even have GSM coverage. So, take these things in bite sizes, but have a 15-year plan. That's what I would say. Have a 15-year plan. And what are you going to do in the next 2 years? And do it in bite sizes. But this is real, and Malaysia has slipped. We've slipped on every single indicator out there, with the exception of one. And it's important that the country and the nation gets back to rebuilding what we have. And the digital angle is an extremely important one, but do it in bite sizes.
Thank you. Bite sizes. Good point. What about Mr. Oliver? What would be your key takeaway that you would like the audience here to bring home?
Sure. I want to advocate the fact that at the end of the day, in all discussion around how we can transform and how well do we reinvent ourselves or move towards Industry 4.0, it is very important to look at the design of what we want to put together. In fact, I want to share that last year, IEEE published a guidebook called the Ethically Aligned Design, which translates into the fact that ethics is an important discussion that should not take place at the end of the process of transformation. It should start from the beginning at design stage, right? I think we can all look forward to the whole digital transformation to Industry 4.0, depending on when you want to get there. We will have a faster, a bigger and better set of services and solutions for the industry, for humankind in general. But think about the quality of design from the start. More importantly, how we can inject in the ethical considerations. And who knows, right? In time to come, we may just have ethical auditors, just like the accounting profession, right? You have got auditing of the account statements. Can we not have auditing of the intelligent solutions, the AI solutions, the automation solutions that we put in place? So audits of ethical intelligence. So that would be something I think we should all look at. And again, start with design as an important part of the whole process of transformation. Back to you.
Thank you, Oliver. Starting with design, that's a good takeaway. Professor Nazri, what would be your key takeaway for the audience?
Yeah, my message goes out to two groups of stakeholders here. One is the digital transformers, for lack of a better name, the consultants, the advisors that helps companies, to digital transform themselves. And the other one will be the digital adopters, the businesses that are adopting the technology. The message to both groups of people here is that number one is that they have to be aware of all the obstacles, okay, that result in that affect them in adopting AI or smart technologies like AI. So what will be the barriers towards adopting such technology? So number one is the realization that there are barriers, such as the perceived high costs involved, the lack of clarity of ROI, the lack of technical skills needed to deploy that from an adopter's point of view, right? And the fourth thing is the timeline. The timeline needed to adopt technology is going to be far and long, and so that's a perception that they are having, or maybe they've experienced such before. So fourth thing, right? Fifth thing is about whenever they build an IT solution, they lack the ownership or the IP ownership of that assets, right? Or systems that are being built. So with all these 5-6 barriers that I mentioned plaguing the minds of the digital adopters, in order for transforming, because they don't have the inherent skills, right? In order to ensure digital transformation takes place, the digital transformers or the providers of digital solutions need to understand these 5-6 barriers and try to package their technological solutions in such a way that these barriers are either zeroized or minimized. So so the whole topic is about digital transformation and how to minimize and overcome the barriers that we talked about. So I hope that both parties are able to get into a discussion that focuses more on these barriers and how to remove them before talking about how fancy our technologies are and how remarkable they are, but focusing on the mindset of the business owners or the digital adopters first. Thank you so much.
Lovely, Professor Nazri. Thank you for the insight. Last but not least, the pleasure is to Dr. Gopi to provide the last key message or takeaway that you would like the audiences here to come home with.
Yeah, thank you, Izhan. I think mine will be the short one, I guess. I think, you see, technology is actually changing so rapid. I think all the organizations, people at the management level or people working for an organization, they need to quickly learn, they need to quickly unlearn what they have learned and relearn new things. Only then they will see the benefit of the entire digitalization and the process. Otherwise, they would not see the real benefit of it. People will keep on talking. People will just say, it is unnecessary to change, unnecessary to embrace technology and so on. But at the end, they are the one who's going to lose out. My advice for SMEs is that take up the opportunity that has been put forward, for example, industry forward, assessment, for example, right? How many SMEs has really taken up the initiative that has been in front of them? Just to start small, just to transform the basic need in terms of the digitalization. Then they can slowly change and move into the next stage of competing with the others in the world level. Then only we can call ourselves the world leader in terms of adopting and embracing IT for a better, of course, at the end of the day, it's a better profit for them as well. But they must start, now. Otherwise, we will be left out. We'll be worse than the third world country later on. Thank you.
Yeah, start now. That's a good key takeaway. Therefore, to the audiences and to the panelists, all good things must come to an end. It has been a fruitful session, and I would like to thank our panelists today, Professor Nazri, Dr. Gopi, Mr. Girish, and Mr. Oliver Tian, for sharing your thoughts and insights. Not forgetting to all of you in this call as well, and for those questions that you provided earlier. And I believe we walk away today with a better appreciation on the topic, which is the path to Industry 4.0, leveraging 5G and smart technology, and the exciting things coming ahead. Stay safe and enjoy the rest of the summit. Pass the floor to our host, Mr. Zaim.